Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today I'm going to be using the beautiful Blooms set, the stamps and dies, and then later on I will also be using our double stitched polygon dies and the big buzzword stamps and dies. So basically what I wanted to do was I wanted to do some emboss resist watercoloring because it's the easiest kind to do. And I wanted to paint, but I wasn't really looking to spend, well, I guess it took me a lot of time anyway, but it had nothing to do with the image. It's just because it just takes me a long time. So here I was using the transfer sheet just to get good placement, to make sure that I was going to have enough of the image. I'm going to treat it with my anti-static tool, and then I'm going to use our clear embossing ink to go ahead and stamp this down on my watercolor paper. I am using Canson Monteval watercolor paper, but you can obviously use whatever type of watercolor paper you like best. I did stamp these twice just because they are, and you can see I'm inking it up for days. I did stamp them twice because they are more intricate, detailed drawing of the flowers, illustration, a more detailed illustration. How about that? And so I wanted to make sure that I was going to get a good impression, and that is the benefit of, a stamp positioner like the Misty, that I can stamp this down twice. This card is clearly bigger than an A2 size card, and I know that I'm going to have to cut it down, but I also knew that because I was going to be doing a wet on wet technique that I was going to need to tape my paper down. So here I used my stamp pressure tool, and then I CPR'd it just for some good luck, and then I am going to sprinkle on some white detail embossing powder. You're not really going to be able to see any of this because it is white on white. Once I sprinkled that on, I just went in with a dry paintbrush and cleaned up any areas that had embossing powder where I didn't want it. And then I'm going to heat set it until it is smooth and shiny. Like I said, this is one of the easier ways to do watercoloring, really, with any kind of medium, but today we're going to be using Distress Ink Reinkers, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we get to creating our palette. But so here, once I was done with this and it was all melted and smooth, then I'm going to put my paper back into my Misty. I'm going to use that transfer sheet again to get the placement where I want it, and then I will line up my stamp just right on top of that transfer sheet and pick it up with my Misty door. And then I didn't show you the stamping 2 times on this one because I showed it to you before, but I did stamp it twice again after treating with my embossing tool, or my anti-static tool. If you're not familiar with this one, it is the cottontail embossing tool from Rabbit Hole Designs. I really like it, and Honeybee actually carries it in their store. Sometimes I think people don't realize how many things Honeybee carries in their store. It's not just their own brand of, stamps. They carry inks and papers and reinkers like we're going to use today. All of those things. They're kind of a great one-stop shop. So now I'm stamping this down for the second time. I did rotate the stamp so that it was a different corner of it that was showing, just to keep things a little bit more interesting. And then the same thing as before, sprinkling on that white detail embossing powder, and then I will heat set this till it's smooth. So I will tell you that I've actually already done this voiceover once, and what had happened was I use a Yeti microphone when I am doing my voiceovers. I find that it works really well for me for the most part. And when I did the voiceover, here, back to the card, sorry. We're going to tape this down. I am using just a low tack tape to tape this down to my watercolor board. You may notice that it is upside down. And that is because I wanted to make sure that I didn't get any paint or anything in that beautiful engraving, and I wanted my color palette to be on the right hand side. speaking of my color palette. So you can do this without reinkers. You can just smush your ink pad down on a non-porous surface and use that as a palette. I am going to use the reinkers for a few different reasons. Mostly because reinkers are concentrated pigment. So I'm literally only putting down 1 dot from each color. I used picked raspberry, seedless preserved, I'm trying to think, ripe persimmon, mustard seed, mowed lawn, peacock feathers, chip sapphire, and then the 2 ink smushes you see are rustic wilderness and villainous potion. So I started off by putting water on my paper with a 1-inch round brush, and I realized pretty quickly that that was too big, or I'm sorry, a 1-inch flat brush. So I switched to an 8-inch or an 8 round brush, and was much happier with that. But the reason I picked them is because they are so concentrated. And if I left this palette here, I would be able to paint multiple cards with this. I am a person who likes intense color, and with watercoloring, a lot of times you have to build up layers to get intense color. By using the reinkers, I can get that intense color in almost one go. And that's kind of worth it to me in knowing that it already takes me a lot of time to do any sort of watercoloring. I like being able to get to those intense colors quicker. Again, if you don't have them, that's fine. You can just smush them down and pick them up with your paintbrush. Just make sure if you're looking for intense color, you're using as little water as possible when you're picking up the pigment. And the reason that I drop them in wet on wet is so the color immediately can start moving. Here at this point, I'm going to speed up the painting. I apologize. I was uncrossing my legs because my foot was going to sleep and I just kicked my desk. That was probably pretty loud, so my apologies. But anyway, so I'm just going to start dropping in color. Couple of things just to be aware of, that complementary colors do make muddy colors. So purple and a yellow, a blue and an orange. But if you pay attention, if you are selective about what kind of colors you are picking, you can still make it work for you. So when I was picking my purples, I used like the seedless preserves, which is a bit more on the pink side. And then when I was picking my oranges, the ripe persimmon is a bit more corally. So because of that, because my purple is a bit more on the pink, when I put my yellow into it, or if they meet, they're going to mix nicer. And the same thing with the, the orange color. It's going to mix really nicely with my pink and my yellow because they're analogous colors that are next to each other. Here you can see me kind of going around the edge, and I'm just trying to soften it a little bit. I'm just going around the edge with clean water, and then I'm going to just keep dropping in pigment until I'm happy with it. If you find that you have too much water on your paper, just blot it up with a paper towel. If you find that you are making mud where you didn't mean to, just blot it up with a paper towel. Watercolor is very forgiving. So if you're, getting some color mixing that you don't really love, just blot it up, and you can typically go back over it with another color and still get really beautiful results. If you don't like you don't like the color at all, you can go over it multiple times with clean water and blot up most of it the majority of the time. You'll have better luck cleaning it up with the less concentrated version, with the ink pad version of the ink versus the actual reinkers, which is why I like to do this type of watercoloring with just very freely. Just kind of letting them blend, and you'll notice at the top here that I've put down more water than I did at the bottom, and just kind of letting them move and do their thing. If you want to avoid the hard edges that sometimes you can get with the pigment on the outside, just make sure you're blotting that up pretty quickly. Here on the top left hand side, you can see I'm starting to get some muddy colors a little bit with that orange and the blue. So I'm just going to go in, I'm going to blot it up while it is still a little bit damp, I can go back in. I'm not going to add any extra water to that area, but I'm going to pick up some of that chipped sapphire and then put it around that orange for some contrast. But again, there's not a ton of water there, so there's not going to be a ton of movement. So they're not really going to blend in with each other. Once I am happy with all of the pigment that I have down, I'm going to let this dry completely. And with any watercolors, not just Distress Inks, they all dry back a little bit. So the color is going to be less intense when it's dry than when it is wet. At this point, everything is dry, and now I'm going in with a number 2 round brush just to add some shading to this detailed image. You could skip this step if you're not interested in that. If you're really happy with your underpainting, then just leave it and go with that. But if you're looking to add a little bit of extra dimension, you can go in with just a little bit of water. This is a wet on dry technique, so my paper is not wet, my paper is dry. And I'm just going in, and for the most part, I really just did like a line or two to get some extra shading. If you find that your line is very harsh and you don't like that, you can rinse off your brush, blot it off, and then go in with just a damp brush, swipe it over your shading, and it should soften it. Here, I wanted some browns for my stems, and as we talked about, complementary colors make brown. So I mixed a little of my ripe persimmon with my chipped sapphire and made a brown to put into my stems for these little berries. And then for, I think maybe they're more berries. They might be cattails. I'm not sure, up in the top left of this particular corner piece. So again, I will end up speeding this up because it did take me a while. Most of the time I have about 2 hours of footage that I shrink down to be about 30 minutes. You may notice this one is a hair shorter than 30 minutes, and I'm going to tell you that's because at one point I thought I was recording and I had actually paused it. So all of the technique is still here, but you will see when we get closer to the end of the video, the actual parts of the assembly are missing. And I apologize. You'll actually see my reaction to it when I realize what has happened when I went to go press the button to pause it and realized that I was actually hitting the record button. I was very upset, but I figured there was enough left of the video that I could just go ahead and make it. So, on the life front of things, we did pick a Halloween costume. You guys had made some suggestions in my last video, which I totally appreciate. But I picked the Halloween costumes for a couple of reasons. One, I was looking for something warm, and these are very fuzzy. They have fuzzy hoods. They will keep her nice and warm, and they will keep me nice and warm. Also, I picked it because they had matching ones. One that was a baby one and one that was an adult one. And the third reason is they were on sale. Yep. So we're going to be unicorns. That's what we're going to Halloween as. And also I'm excited because that means I'll get to wear some kind of fun rainbowy eye makeup with like glitters and shimmers and all that kind of fun stuff. So I'm totally here for that. And so I don't know if you guys really know, when as an adult, I've always matched Nathan for Halloween. Last year was the first year that I didn't, and it's because I was hugely pregnant with my daughter. But so now he is a little bit older and he doesn't want to match me for Halloween, and I knew that day would come. But fortunately, I went and had another baby, and now I can match her. So I got a few more years left. I got a few more years left of that fun pastime. So when I was shopping over the years, shopping for an adult costume for Halloween, they are outrageously expensive. Like, they can be $50, $60, $70. They're so pricey. And I am so cheap. So cheap. So the sale, and it was like a weekend sale, that I was able to get both of our costumes, mine and hers, for the same price that one regular adult costume would cost me. and they were both super warm because I have like the big fuzzy hoods for the unicorn horn, and that was totally a win for me. I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna run with it, and I'm gonna be happy to be a unicorn. Plus, that's also the theme of her first birthday party, which is coming up, if you can even believe that it's already been 1 year. It's just wild to me. And maybe I feel that way because I know she's my last baby. Maybe that's why it didn't feel like it went this fast with my son, but it is going by so fast with her. It's just, she's, already pulling herself up consistently. She's doing a little bit of cruising. She's going to be walking in no time. She's a funny little mimic. Everything that you do, she mimics it. She's, so I think I told you guys this before. At my mom's, she has like this little shape blocks thing that she puts the shapes in, and then she'll look at you and wait for you to clap for her. And this morning she has an aquarium here at the house that is similar. Like, you put the fishes in and then you take them out, and it's actually the song that it's saying. It says, put a fishy in, take a fishy out. That's a little song. So today I was getting up and I had made myself a new cup of coffee, and I was on my way back, and she was in her playpen playing with her aquarium, and she put her little fishy in, and then she clapped for herself. It was like the cutest thing. I tried to get it on video, but I was not quick enough, because then once she saw me, she was all excited and wanted to be picked up. But yeah, it was pretty adorable. So we've got Halloween all squared away, and now the next thing to get all squared away is the decorations and stuff for her birthday. But yeah, just exciting things. I was very relieved to see in the videos of those of you that said that you had birthdays, or your family members had birthdays later in the year, that you did not feel like you got totally gypped by, not getting any presents. And then a lot of people said that they did half birthdays, which I think is super kind of fun tradition to start. So maybe that's something that we will maybe kind of do. For Peanut, it's a little bit different because his birthday is earlier in the year. Christmas is like halfway for him. So he gets, presents at Christmas, and he gets presents on his birthday. But because she's so late in the year, that's not really going to be the case for her. And I don't know how to have a half birthday for her and not have a half birthday for him. So I don't know. Well, logistically, I'll have to figure that out. So here, once I'm done adding the details, I'm going to let it dry completely, and then I'm going to pull up my tape. What changed my mind is I didn't really like the way that the background flow was, and so I decided that I was going to go ahead and die cut them out. So here I'm just kind of flipping this around until I get it where it's supposed to be, and then I will run this through my die cut machine to get just kind of the corner piece. And I think this ended up being a really good decision for the card design, because then I was able to pop them up and give them a little bit of dimension. And that's also how I decided to bring in the double stitched polygons, because I really love gold with kind of like that pinkish purple for fall. And so I got some gold metallic cardstock, not enough. I'm going to cut like a little frame out of it. So not enough to be like crazy in your face, but enough to add some, shimmer and shine, which you guys all know that I totally love. And then I used the big buzzwords, and I chose to do the big birthday wishes because my mother-in-law actually also has a birthday in November. And so that is why I chose to do that one, because I need a card for her anyway. Here, this is some eggplant cardstock that I felt matched pretty well, and I'm going to cut the letters for big out of it. And then I'm also going to use this for my label. So I'm going to do a little bit more heat embossing onto this. I'm going to treat it with my anti-static tool, stamp it down in our clear embossing ink, and then again use that same white detail embossing powder. So Some of you had asked, and I thought that I had addressed it, but maybe I had not, about selling my cards. And I know that I had told you that I was pretty sure that I was going to stop doing that. And at this point, I have. I'm not paying for rental space anymore. I'm completely out. This is the first month that we haven't been in the store. And not that I'm sure that it wouldn't be lucrative for somebody. It just was not for me. I never made back in sales what I paid in rent. And part of that, quite honestly, was my fault. I wasn't necessarily great about keeping things stocked up because it was so time consuming. So here I have all my pieces, parts, and now here it's all assembled. And this is my actual reaction and seeing that I had it paused the whole time. So after I get over my devastation, I realize that at least I can film some of the things I need to fix. So here, the big did not look like it was aligned correctly. Little tip for like word dies. You always want to start with the one in the middle first so that way you can get, good even placement. Here, I just needed to scoot the B over just a smidge. It wasn't standing up straight, but the G looked completely crooked. So I ended up taking that off. I did have a little bit of adhesive behind that. So I peeled it off, and then I'm going to use the ruler to put it back into place so that everything is level. I glued the polygon down flat. I popped up the flower corner pieces and then trimmed off any excess. And then for the bee and the birthday wishes, because they do overhang the flowers, there is a little bit of foam behind the bee and a little bit of foam behind the wishes portion of the label. I used our Marvelous Moments gem stickers in kind of that same gold color to fill in the air. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the perfect pearls because I didn't film it. So you can see there's kind of some spatters in the background. That is some gold perfect pearls that I just used to kind of complete the card because I had these two big floral pieces. I needed something to fill up that space, so I chose to do that with some spatters of gold and some gems, again, to tie in that polygon. This, I'm using some clear shimmer to just add some shimmery goodness to those flowers, but just be advised that it can reactivate the Distress ink, so make sure that you aren't picking up any pigment and redepositing it before you're moving all over your card. And then that's it. That's the whole card. So thank you guys so much for joining me and for spending your time with me. I appreciate you, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.